Ladies and gentlemen, there's a story about a man carrying a heavy bag of stones. He's walking, struggling, barely moving forward, and someone asks him, "Why don't you just put it down?" And he says, "Because it's mine." How many of us are carrying something right now? Worry, fear, control, the need to have everything figured out, the need to fix everything. We like to believe we're in control. We plan, we strategize, we map out every step of our lives as if we are the architects of every outcome. We tell ourselves that if we work hard enough, think long enough, and prepare well enough, things will go exactly as we want. But then, life happens. A phone call in the middle of the night. A job we thought was secure suddenly gone. A relationship we invested in falling apart. A diagnosis we never expected. And in that moment we realize something we don't like to admit. Yet we resist this truth. And yet we resist this truth. We hold tighter. We micromanage. We overthink. We convince ourselves that if we just try a little harder, if we just stress a little more, we can force things to go our way. But control is an illusion. Think about the ocean. You can stand on the shore and try to hold back the waves with your hands, but no matter how strong you are, the tide will keep coming. You can shout at the wind to stop blowing, but the wind doesn't answer to you. And yet we try. We try to control how people see us, how they treat us, what they think of us. We try to control the timing of our success, the course of our careers, the trajectory of our lives. We spend so much energy trying to control things that were never ours to control in the first place. And the cost? Anxiety, frustration, exhaustion. Because when you operate under the illusion of control, every setback feels like failure. Every unexpected turn feels like a threat. Every delay, every disappointment, every detour feels like a personal attack. And so we fight against reality. We resist the natural flow of life. We cling to our plans as if they are guarantees, and when they fall apart, we fall apart with them. But here's the irony. The people who live with the most peace, the most clarity, the most joy are not the ones who control everything. They are the ones who trust. They are the ones who understand that no matter how much they plan, life has its own rhythm. They are the ones who know that sometimes the things we hold on to the tightest are the very things we need to let go of the most. And that's where the real challenge lies. Because letting go isn't easy. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like losing. It feels like giving up. But what if it's not? What if letting go is actually stepping into something greater? What if surrender isn't weakness, but wisdom? What if releasing control is the very thing that allows us to move forward, rather than staying stuck in a cycle of stress and frustration? And what if just for a moment we stopped trying to control the waves and started learning how to ride them? Every single one of us is carrying something. Some burdens are visible: financial struggles, health challenges, broken relationships. Others are invisible: fear, doubt, guilt, the pressure to be enough, do enough, and have enough. We wake up with these burdens, we carry them throughout the day, and no matter how much we try to ignore them, push through them, or pretend they don't exist, they weigh us down. But the most exhausting part, we often don't even realize how heavy they've become. Imagine walking through life with a heavy backpack. Every worry, every fear, every regret is another stone inside. At first it feels manageable, but over time the weight adds up. The longer we carry it, the more it drains us, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and yet we convince ourselves that we have no choice. We believe it's our responsibility to carry everything alone. Society has taught us that strength means handling things on our own, that asking for help is weakness, that letting go means giving up. So we hold on to past mistakes as if punishing ourselves will somehow undo them. We hold on to the fear of the future as if worrying about it will somehow prevent bad things from happening. We hold on to resentment as if carrying anger will somehow make the pain go away. But here's the truth. The burdens we carry don't make us stronger. They make us tired. And the longer we carry them, the more they shape us. We start walking differently. We start seeing the world differently. We stop dreaming, stop hoping, stop believing things can change, not because they can't, but because we're too exhausted to imagine a different reality. And yet we still refuse to put the weight down. Why? Because letting go feels uncertain. It feels like losing control. And as much as our burdens weigh us down, They also feel familiar. There's a strange kind of comfort in them. We've carried them for so long that we don't know who we are without them. But what if we weren't meant to carry them alone? What if the weight we've been struggling under was never ours to bear in the first place? What if the things we think we have to hold on to, fear, guilt, shame, are the very things that are holding us back? What if relief, peace, and freedom aren't found in carrying more, but in carrying less? And what if the strength we've been searching for isn't found in struggling under the weight, but in finally having the courage to set it down? From a young age, we are taught to fight, to push through, to never back down. The world celebrates strength, the kind that overcomes, endures, and refuses to quit. And for the most part, that's good advice. Hard work matters. Perseverance matters. But somewhere along the way, we started believing a lie, that surrender is the same as giving up, that letting go means losing, that trusting in something beyond ourselves is weakness. So we grip tighter. We hold on to control like our lives depend on it. We convince ourselves that if we just try harder, if we just think longer, if we just fight more, we can force things to go our way. But then reality hits. We don't get the job we worked so hard for. The relationship we gave everything to still falls apart. The dream we've been chasing seems further away than ever. And no matter how much effort we put in, no matter how much we plan, some things just don't go the way we want them to. And in those moments, we face a choice. We can't keep fighting, keep exhausting ourselves, trying to control what was never in our hands to begin with, or we can surrender. But surrender doesn't mean quitting. It doesn't mean we stop working, stop striving, or stop caring. Surrender means recognizing that we were never meant to carry everything alone, that there is a difference between effort and control. That doing our best doesn't mean forcing an outcome. It means trusting that no matter what happens, we will be okay. Think about a river. The strongest swimmer in the world will lose if they fight against the current. But the person who surrenders, who learns to move with the water instead of against it, will always go further. Surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's understanding that just because we don't see a way doesn't mean there isn't one. It's knowing that no amount of stress, worry, or control will change what is already in motion. It's choosing peace over anxiety, trust over fear, and faith over frustration, and yet we resist it because surrender feels uncertain. It requires faith, patience, and the ability to admit that we are not the ones writing the full story. And that is hard, because we like to be in control. We like to believe that we can fix everything, solve everything, handle everything on our own. But what if the real strength isn't in holding on, but in knowing when to let go? What if the breakthrough we've been waiting for isn't in trying harder, but in trusting more? What if the greatest power isn't in forcing the plan, but in surrendering to something greater than ourselves? Fear is powerful. It has the ability to stop us in our tracks, to keep us from moving forward, to make us believe that where we are is as far as we will ever go. It whispers doubts into our minds. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if everything falls apart? And before we even take a step, fear convinces us that stepping forward isn't worth the risk. But here's the thing about fear. It's a liar. It magnifies our worst-case scenarios, makes problems seem bigger than they are, and keeps us trapped in situations we were never meant to stay in. Yet so many of us live in fear. We fear the unknown, so we stay where we are, even if we're unhappy. We fear failure, so we never take the leap, even when opportunity is right in front of us. We fear judgment, so we hide who we truly are, even when it's exhausting to pretend. And the worst part, fear doesn't just hold us back. It drains us. It keeps us up at night, makes us second-guess ourselves, and steals the peace we so desperately want. But there is something stronger than fear, faith. Faith is what allows us to move forward even when we don't have all the answers. It's what gives us the courage to try again after failure, to take the next step even when the path isn't clear. Faith says, even if I don't see the way, I trust there is one. It doesn't mean we won't face obstacles. It doesn't mean we won't have moments of doubt, but faith refuses to let fear make the decisions. Think about every great achievement, every breakthrough, every moment of growth. It all happened because someone chose faith over fear. They started the business even though they didn't know if it would succeed. They pursued the relationship even though they had been hurt before. They took the risk even though there were no guarantees. And that's the difference between a life that's full and a life that's limited. Fear waits for certainty. Faith moves forward anyway. Fear demands proof. Faith believes in the unseen. Fear controls. Faith frees. And the truth is we all have fear, but the question is, what do we do with it? Do we let it control us, define us, limit us, or do we choose faith? Do we step out even when we're unsure? Do we trust that there is a purpose bigger than what we can see? Because when faith takes the lead, fear loses its power. It no longer controls our actions, our choices, or our future. It becomes nothing more than noise in the background, still there, but no longer in charge. And when we live in faith, we stop settling for small, safe, and certain. We step into bold, brave, and limitless. We stop playing defense and start living with purpose. We stop asking, what if I fail? And start believing, what if this works? Because fear will always be there, but so will faith. The only question is, which one will we listen to? Great leaders don't always have all the answers. They don't always know how things will turn out. They don't always have a perfect plan that guarantees success. But the one thing they do have is trust. Trust in the process, trust in the journey, and trust that even the setbacks are shaping something greater. In a world obsessed with instant results, trusting the process feels uncomfortable. We want things to happen quickly. We want the reward without the struggle, the outcome without the patience, the success without the uncertainty. And when things don't happen on our timeline, we start questioning if we're on the right path. But leadership, true leadership, isn't about forcing outcomes. It's about having faith in the steps, even when you don't see the full staircase. Think about a farmer. He plants seeds, waters them, and tends to the soil, but he doesn't dig up the seeds every day to check if they're growing. He doesn't panic when he doesn't see results immediately. He trusts that beneath the surface, something is happening. Yet as leaders, whether in business, in relationships, or in life, we often struggle with that kind of patience. When things don't happen as fast as we want, we get frustrated. We try to rush the process, force the results, or manipulate the timeline. But just like you can't rush a harvest, you can't rush meaningful growth. Leaders understand that every challenge, every setback, and every delay is part of something bigger. They know that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. They know that just because they don't see progress today doesn't mean progress isn't happening. But trusting the process isn't just about patience, it's also about resilience. Because the truth is, the journey will test you. There will be moments when you feel like giving up. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, when you question if you're doing the right thing, when everything seems to be falling apart instead of coming together. And this is where most people stop. They assume that struggle means failure, that delays mean they're off track, that obstacles mean they should turn back. But leaders see it differently. They understand that resistance is part of growth, that setbacks are setups for something greater, and that just because things aren't happening on their timeline doesn't mean they aren't happening at all. Trusting the process also means trusting yourself. It means knowing that you are being shaped by every challenge you face. It means believing that even when things don't go as planned, there is still purpose in the journey. It means recognizing that the most successful people didn't get there because they had a perfect plan. They got there because they didn't quit when things got hard. The problem is we live in a world that only celebrates results. We admire the finished product, but rarely acknowledge the struggle it took to get there. We see the championship, but not the years of training. We see the thriving business, but not the sleepless nights. We see the strong leader, but not the moments of doubt they had to push through. But leaders don't just trust the success, they trust the struggle. They trust that every lesson, every failure, and every delay is preparing them for something greater. They trust that even when they don't see progress, something is happening beneath the surface. And that trust, the ability to keep going even when the results aren't immediate, is what separates those who lead from those who quit. Because leadership isn't about knowing exactly how things will turn out. It's about believing in the journey, staying committed, and trusting that every step, no matter how small, is leading somewhere meaningful. We hold on to so many things: expectations, failures, regrets, pain, control. We grip them tightly, convinced that if we just hold on long enough, we can change the past, prevent the future, or force things to work out the way we want. But the harder we hold on, the heavier they become. We tell ourselves that we can't let go, that we have to carry these things, that without them, we wouldn't know who we are. But what if the very things we refuse to release are the things that are holding us back the most? Letting go is hard. It feels unnatural. We associate it with loss, with giving up, with failure. We think that if we let go, it means we didn't try hard enough, didn't care enough, didn't do enough. But the truth is, letting go isn't weakness. It's freedom. It's the ability to move forward without being weighed down by what no longer serves us. It's the willingness to accept that not everything is meant to stay and not everything is ours to control. It's the realization that clinging to something that is already gone doesn't bring it back. It only prevents us from reaching what's ahead. Yet we struggle with this. We hold on to past mistakes, punishing ourselves for things we cannot change. We hold on to toxic relationships, convincing ourselves that if we just try harder, we can fix them. We hold on to plans that no longer fit who we are, simply because we're afraid of what happens if we let them go. But what if letting go is exactly what we need? What if, instead of resisting change, we embraced it? What if, instead of fearing the unknown, we trusted that what's ahead is greater than what's behind? What if, instead of gripping so tightly, we finally opened our hands and allowed life to unfold the way it was meant to? Because here's the truth, the more we try to control everything, the more we suffer. We suffer when we hold on to bitterness, thinking it will make the pain go away. We suffer when we replay the past, believing it will somehow change. We suffer when we cling to things that are no longer meant for us, thinking that our worth is tied to what we refuse to release. But when we let go, we create space for healing, space for growth, space for new opportunities, new relationships, new experiences, space to finally breathe without the weight of everything we've been carrying. And it doesn't mean we forget. It doesn't mean we don't care. It doesn't mean we don't feel the loss of what once was. It simply means we choose peace over control. We choose trust over fear. We choose to believe that just because something ends doesn't mean something better can't begin. And maybe, just maybe, the freedom we've been searching for isn't found in holding on, but in finally having the courage to let go.